So the introduction, as you know, is right at the front of your book, right behind the table of contents, and right before the beginning of the text. And it goes like this. It says, "This is a Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The aim of the course is not to teach the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to your awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all encompassing can have no opposites. This course, it says, can therefore be summed up very simply in this way: nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Ah, y'all know that's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. So, yes, love is all there is. God is all there is. Nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal exists. And guess what? You are real. You are as real can get. Because what you see, all right. So, so it was so funny. Yesterday I was in class, and I want to share this because somebody made a funny in the midst of class. And I kind of laughed so hard. I said to her, I said, you know what, I'm going to write that down because I want to share that with folks. Um, when I get on the radio, because I thought really course people will find it very amusing, while everybody else might not have been too up on why I thought it was so funny. But I was talking about there really being only two choices, between fear and love, or heaven or hell, or and we were going through, and talking about the two choices and where these two choices could possibly be. And and so between light and darkness and all this other stuff. And so the one woman says, "What do you mean there's no dusk?" And it was so funny because when she said what happened to dusk, I'm thinking to myself, what, that moment before dawn, or that moment just between day and night, that thing we call dusk. She was like, what happened to the shades of gray? And for me, I just sat there for a minute and I just had to laugh. It's just like one of those things. It was just so cute and so poetic at the time, that I was just like, okay, all right. And so many of us are used to the shades of gray, of the shades of gray that would have us like standing in both camps at one time and not really choosing one or the other. Yeah, I thought, yeah, there's, yeah, there's no shades of gray. What do you mean two choices? I thought it was three: sex, drugs, and rock and roll. See, there you go, Pete. I told you you are so cute. So cute. And all of those seem like they were on the same continuum to me. Escape. They're what we do when we want to detour into escapism. And so, and I often have people ask me the question, like, Sandra, are you always so serious? And it's like, no, I don't think I'm always so serious. But here's the other thing that I know that, at a certain point, I had this wonderful meditation the other day. And in my meditation, I saw, how so let me show you, let me kind of walk you through. They say revelation is, when you try to share what you get in a revelation, is really meaningless to other people, or you just don't get it because you weren't there. But it seems like in a second, in an instant, it's like all this information is downloaded to you, and in spite of myself, I still try to share it, because to me it's just so intense of a message, or so intense of a lesson. I try to share it with other folks. So I'm like in the midst of this universe, and I'm in the midst of all the presence of all these things, and I'm thinking to myself, whatever it is, all these life forces, all these energies, all these people are here populating the earth. And if we like pull our vision way back from it, if we pull way back and we just see all these little dots that would represent people, there's, I imagine that, and I was under the perception that there could be dots that are vibrating at different frequencies, some light and some dark and some, in between, and trying to figure out where they are. And here I saw my dot, my person, my spot where I was, and I saw it radiating this intense light, this intense love. And for some reason, I'm thinking that I'm surrounded by, and I can be at times surrounded by people that don't recognize their own light and don't recognize how wonderful and great. And from a perspective of being way out, it may seem like I'm not in line with everything and everybody else. But then it's like, as I know that I change my mind, and as I get it, as I radiate on that thing called love, when I radiate that, it has an effect on all those that are around me. And so as I was sitting there and I was thinking to myself, like, wow, let me just amp up my power. Let me amp up this love in me. I know there's no God, love but God's love. I know that it is, like everywhere present, all the same. I mean, we have this perception that it could be more intense in one area and less intense in another. So, and so I was sitting there and I was thinking to myself, like, okay, let me just stand in my truth. Let me stand up on this truth that is love. And so as I stood there and I'm radiating this truth of love, I'm seeing that the dots, it's like almost like a domino effect, are affecting other dots and all these other cells that are around me. And then I realized that that's the same thing that happens within our bodies. We've got all these cells that are radiating light, that are emitting light, and that are just in this presence, in this vibration of love. And then there's this one dot that seems like it doesn't want to get it. There's this one spot, and we want to like make that one spot as if it's something, something different, but really it's all the same. Right. And so as I was thinking about this, and I was like thinking to myself, that would be a lot. We say it all the time. What the dot that doesn't know that it's light, that cell that doesn't know that it's light, that becomes the cancer cell within us. And so what do we do in order to correct that cancer cell? We just send light into it, because light, wherever it is present, it kind of extinguishes all that darkness, all the perceptions that we have. And so I thought about that, and I talked about that in terms of a lot of the relationships that we have. I meet so many people who think that the world around them has some kind of impact on where they are. But and like I know that all of this stuff, all of it is just mental. And once we recognize that it's all mental, we get to change how we perceive things. We get to change how we perceive a situation, how we perceive anything that we're going through. And so once you get that in your mind, it doesn't have to seem like it takes effect in your environment. Once you get it in your mind and you hold that into your heart, it affects everything around you. And so I'm like on this trip saying, what, only love is real. And if I stand up on this truth, it's almost like sticking the rod like a shaft into the ground and proclaiming, I am here and I am love. And that this love is moving through me. It is me. It is what I am, what I'm doing, and it is all the time. And so a lot of times we want to think that it's about something else. It's about other people and what other people do and what they haven't done. And, so and so did this to me. A girlfriend of mine's, I was just talking to her on the phone as I was coming home, and she was telling me about something that happened to her. And we want to perceive, there's this thing we want to, it seems as though our ego is more comfortable with perceiving there being a devil out there, somebody to blame something on, somebody to point the finger at, somebody to say that they've done us wrong. Oh my gosh, it's so hot in here. I don't know why it's so hot in here. It's like 80 degrees in here in Cleveland. Wonderful. I'm not complaining about it, but it seems so hot in here and I'm starting to sweat. But she wanted to perceive something is wrong. So let me cut on this fan. Hold up, y'all. Hold up, hold up. Okay, so while you guys, I'm not even gonna tell you that because I'm a shameless. I will say this, that I am on Ustream, and so when I say I'm starting to sweat, it's like if you're watching me on Ustream, you can see that I'm starting to sweat. But for most of you, you're just hearing me over Pal Talk. And so it doesn't make any difference to you that I'm sweating or that I actually put on a shirt, took off the pants that I had on, put on these hot pants, pants, and I sat down in order to do my show. And so, yeah, and so it's hot in here. It's like, maybe I shouldn't have closed the windows so soon, but yeah, it's hot. So, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Mm. So God is all there is. So, so today, let's talk for a minute about, let's see. Okay, so today let me talk for a minute about this, and then I'll move on to something else in just a few minutes. Today or for the so my meditations have been really intense lately, just fabulously intense, and it seems as though everywhere I go, when I'm meditating and I'm doing it, I'm like going to these deep places. It seems like when I come out of my meditation, it is almost like I'm amped up. I'm plugged in and just running on high. I'm amped in and plugged in and running on high all the time. But this is a little different. Um, when my meditations are rich like they have been lately, it seems as though I hear the voice of God always talking to me, especially during this period of time. It's just like talking to me nonstop. And it's funny because, for most people, I hear people tell me about, like God said this to me. And I don't know. Sometimes I'm tempted to say, oh, you know what? That doesn't sound like God to me. That sounds like, your ego talking to you and you trying to blame it on God. So, so lately it's been that, I've really felt just amped up. And so the other day, as I'm driving down the street, I've been treating about a number of things, treating, praying, or whatever it is, about a number of things, because I'm attracting to me. I want a new stove. Okay, I know this is kind of off the topic, but whatever. You'll get it. You'll get it. You'll get what you get from it. And I give up the idea of knowing or thinking I know how things are supposed to be. So when I cue into Pal Talk or anything else like that, I always give up this notion that I know what it's supposed to look like. I just let it be what it's supposed to be. And I know that as I listen to it, that there's a message in it for me. So my meditation's off the hook. So I'm driving down the street the other day, and I've wanted this stove. I've wanted a stove, a new stove. I've been treating for a new stove. And the space that I have to fit this stove in is 36 inches wide. That's how my cabinets are built. And nowadays, the standard size of a stove is 30 inches. You guys know that. And so I had made up in my mind that, you know what, I'm going to have to bite the bullet and just get me either a custom made stove or get me a professional level stove or get me something else. But now I'm, because I love to cook so much, I'm going to get the stove, the oven, the stove of all stoves. And so, I've just been looking for one. So this one came up on Craigslist here in Cleveland, and it's a 36-inch professional stove. And so it's got 4 burners on one side, it's got a big griddle, then it's got a broiler where you can stick stuff under real quick, and just get that seared thing. It's a professional stove. It's so sharp. And so I wanted this particular stove. And so, of course, I, contacted the lady, and I kind of talked her down a little bit on the price because, the amount that she wanted was, way out of my budget. And so I kind of talked her down on the price. And believe me, you guys, this is not quite a success story yet. So I talked her down onto the price, and so she agreed that she would take $1,000 for it. Okay. And I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, if I'm going to get a stove of this capacity, I need to get a new floor first. And, I wanted to get another floor put down in the kitchen. And so then I thought, oh, man, but if I get the stove like this, then I'm going to have to get a mover to go and pick up this stove and to bring it to my house and, to set it up and everything. And I'm thinking about all the extra costs that come with this humongous, beautiful professional stove that I want. And the thing even has, I prefer $1,000 stove for free. That I would too. You know what? I would too. I would prefer it for free. As a matter of fact, I'm still holding out that that something is going to happen, right? So the stove is just, it's just beautiful, and even has the back thing built into the stove, so I don't have to worry about anything. I don't have to worry about insulating the wall, because sometimes with the professional stoves, you need to build some kind of a fire thing to go along with the stove in order to, not to overheat the walls in your house. And so, this stove was just perfect for me. And so as I'm driving down the street the other day, and I'm kind of like, been thinking about the stove and wanting the stove, and, she agreed on a lesser price and all that other stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I have to think about this logistically. So I'm driving down the street, and all of a sudden I see this truck, and I'm seeing this truck, and I'm thinking to myself, like, why am I looking at this truck? And why is this truck looking as if it has something in it for me? Okay, so I said this is not a success story yet, right? I did. So I'm thinking, why does this truck look like it has something for me? So I pulled over and I stopped, and I'm sitting there and I'm staring at this truck, and I see these guys who actually have on, and it doesn't say Sears on the outside of the truck, but I see they have on jackets and hats that say Sears on them. And so I'm saying, hey, you, hey, come here. And I'm a cute girl, so I get to do that. And they come running over to the truck, over to my car, and to talk to me. And okay, CJ. So as I'm sitting there and I'm talking to the guy, and he's telling me about what he can do for me, as far as being able to deliver the stove that I want and all this other stuff. I'm thinking to myself, oh man, serendipity, right on time. I see the guys, and I make a connection here, and it seems as though all this stuff is going to like fall into place, and I'm just kind of like walking the steps. But even as I'm walking the steps, I know that when we're meditating, when we're plugged in, when we're amped up, when we're turned on, when God is in the plan, and we're putting that, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto us. When we're asking God, God, what would you have me say? What would you have me do? All of those things. When we're asking those questions, it seems as though our steps become ordered all the time. And things that we didn't even think could happen start to happen. They start to come out of the woodwork. And so it's just a wonderful thing. As I'm watching this whole thing, this puzzle come together, I'm thinking how right on time and how right on target this is. So you guys know with me that this is about to happen. All of this stuff is going to come together just like it should. It always does. And Pete, I don't know if I shared with you guys this story here before, but I've always, when I'm plugged in, I'm plugged in. So when I used to do this radio show on regular radio, I was doing a radio show here in Cleveland. I started talking about how I wanted a new car. I wanted a new car, or at least one that was new to me, that was better. I wanted the divine right transportation and all this stuff. I was like, God, I don't know how it's going to happen, but I just know what I need and what I want. And so, and then I said to them, and I said, and I don't want to pay a dime for it. Right? That was the key. I didn't want to pay a dime for it. So, and I said this on the radio on a Sunday. Let's see. 1 week goes past. I came on the next Sunday, and I don't know that I mentioned it the next Sunday. But then the second Sunday, by the time the second Sunday came, On that Friday, I was talking to a friend of mine. He had moved into an apartment building. And he was saying to me, Sandra, I've got this little, he says, yeah, in this apartment building, they only give you one parking space per apartment. He says, and I got the van, but then I got this other little car, and I don't, at nighttime I keep getting these tickets on this car, and he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. He was like, maybe I ought to sell it. And I said, well, how much are you selling it for? And he looks at me and he says, what? Why do you need a car? And I was like, yes, I need a car. I need a car. I need a car. I want a car. And he was like, really? And he was like, well, he was like, I couldn't sell you this car. He says, I'll tell you what. He says, it's just one of those little Honda, what was it? A Honda Civic. He was like, it's just one of those little Hondas, no big deal. He was like, I want you to see if you like it. And it's a red little Honda. And of course I liked it. I liked it. I really did like it. And so by the time I went back on air on that Sunday, that guy had not only given me the car, he had signed over the paperwork. The transfer was done effortlessly, because instead of him writing down that he gave it to me as a gift, I think he said that it was $10 and he sold it to me for $10. So my taxes were next to nothing. I had the everything transferred over to me. And by the time I got on air on Sunday, on that next Sunday, 2 weeks to the day, I had gotten a car for scot-free. I love it. I love it. I love it. And you know what? And don't get me wrong, because I always tell people, God is not some ATM machine that we go up to and just press in the right code, bloop, 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 and get what it is that we want. That's not our relationship. The course, when we talk about all of this stuff, it's wonderful when we recognize, yeah, I've got needs. I've got my body. As long as I'm on this earth plane, I do have needs that I've got to take care of, right? It's not even taking anything away from that. But the thing is that when we get stuff in order, when we recognize that, that not only am I here, to receive, but I'm also here to give, and I'm taking part in that process. And when I'm in the flow, when I'm amped in, when I'm powered up, when I'm taking part, when I'm doing my part, things just seem to happen, and they happen just. Oh, and I love it. I love it. I love it. And so no matter what it is, I'm always telling people, if you just believe, 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 if you just know that all of this stuff, there is nothing that stands outside of God. And so if there is nothing that stands outside of God, there is nothing. And God wants you to be happy. I was just telling somebody that just earlier today. God wants you to be happy. God is not trying to withhold anything from you. Not trying to say, you know what, oh, you're not a body and your body doesn't have needs. So I guess you have needs. You've got stuff that you got to do while you're here. You got stuff that you've got to do. And so just recognize that, do that. And to the extent that you're willing to bless and know that same thing, want that same desire for everybody. I hope all you guys have a state of the art stove. I hope all of you guys have exactly that you're living in the comfort, that, that you're cool, that that you're not sitting up sweating and hot. I wish the very best for everybody. And so when it's like all of this, all of this is just working together. I recognize that I can only meet me, no matter where I go, no matter what I do, no matter what I think. It's all just, hey, Sam, hey, girl, hey, how you doing? And saying yes, and recognizing that we're here. We got a healing going on. There's a healing going on. And so let me heal my perceptions. Let me get out of that ego thing that needs to see somebody else out there. And so when I see that there's nobody else really out there, that it's all just me, all just light, all just love, and recognize that as I desire for myself, that same desire that I have for myself, this thing that you think is you is really me. I'm having that same light and love coming towards you. Because there's only that. There's only that. So I can only encounter part of myself, right? Like you can only encounter part of yourself. And anytime we perceive it as being anything other than about you or about me or about the self that you are, that oneness that is God. That's the only thing there is. That's all there is. It seems so simple to me. And so when we perceive something else, when we think there is something else, that's the darkness that is asking for light. Everything that is not love is a call for love, right? It's asking for light when we perceive it to be something different than what we are. So, and I have just been having all these wonderful holy encounters. Holy, 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 holy. So I know I'm just funny today. So let me see. I'm going to turn to a page. Oh, all things are lessons God would have me learn. Oh my gosh. Mm, mm, mm. So let me just stop right there for a second and just share from this point. Isn't this marvelous, y'all? All things are lessons God would have me learn. God does not know of learning, yet his will extends to what he does not understand, and in that he wills happiness, his son inherited of him to be undisturbed, eternal, and forever gaining scope, eternally expanding in the joy of full creation, and eternally open and wholly limitless in him. This is his will, and thus his will provides the means to guarantee that it is done. Oh my gosh. All things are lessons God would have me learn. So no matter what it is, no matter what it is, no, if it's the stove, if it's the relationship, if it's a relationship that's gone bad, if it's a job that you lost or one that you gained, or the other person that you think is showing up as the devil, whatever it is you think it is, all things are lessons that God would have me learn. All of it is. And so a lot of times we want to judge it. We want to make it seem like, oh my God, this is not the way it's supposed to be. Somebody is out to get me. Yesterday in class, I am all over the page, I know. Okay, so yesterday in class, it was so wonderful because one of the things that I shared was what? Carolyn Miss, in her book Sacred Contracts, was breaking down these archetypal figures, and she talked about there being all these archetypes, that basically are these overarching lessons that we have to learn, or yeah, lessons. I'll call them lessons that we have to learn in our lives. So she said that it seems as though everybody she meets has certain lessons in common, one of which is this orphan child. Ah, don't you love that? The orphan child. In the course, it says that the real problem with us, the real reason why we get so tripped out sometimes, is because we think that we killed God. Ah, and so, so this whole idea of the orphan child comes from this idea that we could have possibly turned and killed God. When in fact, God, you not only could you not have killed him, God has never been in jeopardy. However, we act as if there has been this throne that has been left vacant, and somehow we are out here all by ourselves, unloved, and somehow in the midst of our creation, in the midst of our beingness, something has gone wrong. And so, in our beingness, if we have this perception that we killed God, then we can turn around and then say, and that's why I turned up messed up. That's why I turned up. And what is the judgments that you have against yourself? I mean, think about it for a minute. How many of you are thinking that you are the wrong height, the wrong color, the wrong body build? How many of you think that you're not beautiful enough or articulate enough? Your thoughts don't come to you fast enough? How many of you are judging yourself about the careers that you've chosen, or the mate that you've chosen, or whatever endless number of things, that criticisms that we have about self that we somehow think are not quite right? We think these things because we think that we can, like dethrone God, kill God, and then take its place. And so in taking its place, then we can judge against what God has created. But guess what? Not only is God not dead, you remain as God created you. Regardless of what you think about yourself, you remain as God created you. So all these judgments that you have, I love the way they say it's not, we tend to believe that we're justified in our own things. Don't judge fellow man by his girlfriend. Well, you know what? We love who we love, don't we? Pete, we love who we love. And so whatever the case may be, and let me speak to that for a second, Pete, because this was so funny. I don't mean to say it was so funny, but it really was so funny. Um, did I tell you about my dream the other day? In my dream, I saw this. Okay, so I was out at a restaurant the other day during happy hour. I'm digressing, I know. Y'all, forgive me. No, don't forgive me, because I'm just doing what I'm doing. It's me. It's me. It's me. It's me. It's me. No apology necessary. So the other day I went out to this restaurant and I saw this guy that I went to college with. And, he's still him. He's still cute. He still got that swag that I just thought in college was just so sexy and so cute. And when, he comes into the restaurant and he sits down, and when he sits down, there's this lady that sits next to him. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, looks like he's here with his mom, right? That's what I thought. I was like, that's his mom, right? So when they come over and they get a table over right next to the table that I was sitting at with my girlfriends, they sit down right next to. Now I told my girlfriends too, like, oh, that must be his mom. And so, they're all saying, yeah, that's he dude out on a Friday night with his mom, right? Oh, so when he comes over and he sits down, he introduces me and he says, Sandra, I want you to meet my wife. And I thought, duh. I'm sitting up here telling my girlfriends that this is his mom, and this ends up being his wife. And it's like, okay, he married an older woman. Well, I had a dream. I had a dream after that, not too long after that. And there was this older lady, this old woman in my dream, and she had to be 80, 90 years old because she looked it and she acted. But what she said to me was, baby, you need to marry you a younger man. And I was thinking, like, I think you right. So you say don't judge a fellow by his girlfriend. So don't judge a guy by his girlfriend or his wife, and don't judge me by my man. So, if I come up and I show up with somebody that looks like they should be my kid, understand. If everybody else can do it, I can too. So bless your hearts. So, but all these things, even in that, it's a lesson that God would have me learn. So what? So what? I thought it was his mother. So what? So what? I didn't have a judgment about it. It didn't even dawn on me that it was his wife. But once I found out it was his wife, I was thinking like, oh, how cool is that? I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, I might be the cougar one day that's got the little young guy, and I'm going out and I'm going to be his wife. Cougar Nation we live in. All things are lessons that God would have us learn. And so in that, give up our judgments. Give up our judgments about whatever it is, no matter what it is. Give up your judgments and simply let it be. Because it's only in our thinking that we somehow know better, that we could somehow, kill God and take over in his place. Those are the thoughts that we have that have us judging what God has said. This is perfect and it's good. Yes, yes, yes. And so, yeah, God doesn't see all of these things that we're judging. God doesn't see all these contradictions, all these judgments that we're placing on things. God is not thinking those things. It's you that's thinking those things. It's your ego. It's that need to project, to put the problem out there instead of recognizing that it's right there inside of you. So what do? We go around and we try to change the world rather than changing our own hearts and our own minds, rather than saying, wow, you know what, I need to see only love. And if there's some spot in me that I'm not loving, then what does that mean? That means that I am not going to get to where I'm trying to get to while I'm trying to get there, or when I'm trying to get there. Because I want to, I want to see myself as God sees me. I want to see all of this stuff. I want to know that I'm in my divine right place. I want to know that I'm perfect. I want to know that you are. I want to stay in that space. I want to love as God would love. I want to all those things. And so I want to appreciate every lesson that comes to me. This is a lesson God would have me learn, no matter what it is. And so I stay in that space. I stay in that space because I know that I need to hear these things. I know that these are the experiences I need to have in my life. And I'm just and I'm all right just as I am, wherever I am. And the same thing with you. So if you've ever gotten to a point where you're sitting there and you're thinking that you don't have all that you need, you're in your divine right place. If you think that you don't have all the education that you wanted, you're in your divine right place. If you think that something is wrong with you or your girlfriend or the things that you do, you're in your divine right place. You're in the perfect place to get where you want to go. You know, God is a patient God. I think everybody else is impatient. I think even sometimes we're impatient. But you know what? It takes as long as it takes. This thing called time isn't real anyway. So we've got this thing that we think that things are happening day by day by day by day, you know, moment by moment, day by day, hour by hour, year by year. But really, it already all happened right now. And so when we tune into this space, you know, in between the space, we'll recognize that all of this stuff is just right now. So there is no past. There is nothing to you know, to sit there and say, oh, if I hadn't done this or if I hadn't done that. There is nothing that's, you know, like in the closet that you left behind, you know. You know how people talk about, I'm going to come out of the closet. I got all these skeletons in my closet. There's no stuff in there. There's the stuff that you think you want to put in there, the stuff that you want to hide. There are no private thoughts, right? There's enough stuff in the closet. And so, you know, it's funny because so many people think they've got all these skeletons that they have to worry about. Who's looking at your skeletons? Who's judging you? And if they're judging you, come on. The you accepting it is the problem. It's not what other people think. It's when you give power to their thoughts. You know, you give power to their thoughts by thinking, oh, that's a valid point that they have there. That's bull. That's bull. You know, and so that's one of the things that, you know, you know, people will say to me all the time, like, Sandra, you don't worry about people judging me. I'm like, no. And you know why? You know why? Because you can judge all you want to. You can think whatever you want to about me, about my hot pants, about being a cougar. You can think all you want to, unless I accept it. Unless I agree with you in my thinking, it has no place in my life. And so that becomes the same thing with you. The only time these judgments, these things that you think, people you think are judging you, the only time they has resonance is when you agree with them. That thing about defending, you know, when you defend something, it's like you're giving power to it, you're making it real, you're thinking like, yeah, they've got a point. That's bull. You know, let it go from the nothingness that it came. Just done. It's done. It's over with. The moment you stop giving energy to it, we want to, you know, throw energy into stuff, into situations, into things. I place the future in the hands of God. You know what? And the past is in the hands of God. And every single moment in between is in the hands of God. There is nothing else. Nothing else. And so if I sit up and I obsess and I trip about it, then I'm giving power to it. And there is nothing. That's giving into fear. It's fear. It's fear that's saying that you're not quite enough. It's fear that you've killed God. It's fear that you not what God created you to be. And all of that stuff is a lie, right? Don't you love it? So you know, we can let go of all that stuff. We can just let go of it. We can escape those things by not giving it energy, not giving it just nothing. Starve it to death. Starve it to death. Starve it of your attention, of your power. You know, and it's interesting because issue of power. issues of power have come up a lot lately, in folks that have been in my class and people that I talk to. It seems as though people are having power issues. And when I say power issues, I'm saying that that if God created you to be who you are, then, and you're sitting there and you're worried and you're worried about what other people think or what other people say, you've got to actually take some of the power that you've been given and give it to them. So you're abdicating part of what you need to function over to somebody else that you somehow think their opinion is more. There's a price to pay for that. As a matter of fact, it de-energizes, disempowers you, and it sucks something out of you when, as long as you do it. There's a lot of people who don't stand in their own power and don't recognize the allness of God because they're so busy externalizing all of this stuff. Nothing is as it seems, and you just have to laugh. Yes, Byron Katie. And so, yes, so it becomes this thing of just recognizing that where you are as you stand, all is well, all is good. There is nothing to struggle against. These things, you know how people say, there'll be wars and rumors of wars, and what you battle against is principalities and powers and all this other stuff. And we get caught up in all this fear thinking because we've heard it for so long. And so the thing is that, when you start to recognize that there's nothing else out there, that really you're always only meeting yourself, that all of these things are lessons that God would have you learn and sends them to you on purpose because you need to learn them. When you start to stand in that power, then you'll stop getting all caught up over the dumb stuff that life would bring your way. And here's another quick story. So the other day, I know I got all these stories, and it seems like I got some really juicy stories, but I keep telling y'all these little bitty stories that, I don't know. I've got some big stories, but I got some little bitty stories too. $2 stories, $10 stories, and $20 stories. And I think I've got some $50 stories, but those are for another time. Um, but so the other day I am when the same night we went out to this restaurant. We go in. The issue was it wasn't an issue. We went in at happy hour, and so when we went in at happy hour, there's all these people in there that I know. And there's this one group that, they just they're like this little clique and they all hang out together. And my girlfriend asked me, she was like, well, why don't you ever go out with them anymore? And I said to her, and you guys got to excuse me. I know this is supposed to be, I said, you know what? I can't stand that petty bullshit. That's what I said. I said, I can't stand petty bullshit. I don't have time for drama. That's just what I said. And I know that, you might have issues with me even saying that. Not because I said it, but because, it's, not seeing my brother is innocent. But that's what I said. I said, I don't have time for that petty bullshit. Because, it's a little group. It's a little clique. And, everybody is sleeping with everybody else. And, this guy is sleeping with his friend's wife and nobody else knows it and all this other stuff. Um, yeah, so it's kind of crazy stuff within this little cesspool of friends. It's all this little crazy stuff going on. And so once I got a glimpse, a couple of Christmases ago, I was at a party, and you start to see the behind the works stuff of what's going on. And I thought, oh, I no longer want to be a part of any of that. And so that's what I said to her. I was like, I'm just so tired of the petty bullshit. And so I just, I choose not to be with that particular group because, you know, and And so we can take it a number of ways. So here's one thing that just dawned on me. I said to my as I'm talking, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I can stand up and be the light in that circumstance and say, yeah, I'm not even trying to say be the moral authority or trying to stand up on something, because I think to some extent, we have to be responsible for not only what we not only for what we think about things, but the level to which we participate. So if I'm with a friend, say for instance, I'm there and I've got friends that are there, and one of my friends, one of the guys, if I know his wife is sleeping with another guy in the group, it's not my place to say anything. It's not my place to say anything. But the issue I have is when everybody else knows it, everybody else is smiling and laughing around him and at him, and nobody's saying anything. And so I of course have no intentions of hurting him. I have no intentions of inserting myself into the equation or even thinking I know what the equation is. All I know is that since it's a group where they can play these jokes and games on one another, I didn't want to be a part of that group anymore. I just didn't want to do it. And so it becomes this thing of not just trying to figure out who I am and where I am, but also being responsible with my energy, what I give my attention to, what I give my time to, all of those things. We have to be conscious and make conscious decisions, because things don't just happen, they happen just. And so it becomes this thing, all of us have to be about the business of deciding who we want to be and how we want to love. And love to me doesn't mean that I need to go and hurt somebody by saying, hey, everybody else knows but you. That's not love. That's my ego needing to be right. That's my ego needing to be the moral authority. That's so I just said to her, you know what, I don't like the petty bullshit, and I left it at that. And as they stayed there in the same vicinity that we were, and she saw things as they unfolded. She was like sitting there thinking, like she said to me at a certain point towards the end of the evening, she was like, I see what you mean. you know we all get to choose what it is that we're doing. This life is about making conscious choices, and I am one, to be aware without necessarily needing um, to change it. All I need to do is stand in the truth that is me, and to do as I do. And as I let my light so shine, hopefully I motivate others to shine in that same brightness as I do. If I'm being authentic, if I'm being loving, if I'm showing up and speaking truth, my truth, not somebody else's truth, but my own truth. Hopefully it'll inspire somebody else to do the same without me trying to tell you, that shaking the finger what you ought to do. But do you. God bless you, and you do the best you can until you figure out better, you know. And that's for all of us. All of us have to in the moment. It's one thing, because we all talk about, um, put these lessons at work and to work at our lives. But when it gets down to weaving into the nitty gritty of it all, what does it dictate that you do? And that's what you need to decide for yourself. What does love dictate that I do? And how can I be more loving? How can I show up to be love in this situation? That's the thing all the time. And so, hmm, yeah, I place my future, I place the future, I place all things in the hand of God, and know that He'll direct my path. So there we go. There's my cue, you guys. It's time for me to go, and I love you. And I'll see you guys on Monday. So enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy all things, knowing that they all just come from God. So, all right. So that's it for me. SandraSettit.com, on Twitter at Sam Bishop, and on Facebook, Sandra D. Bishop or Sandra Thrives. All right. So I'm making room. I'm giving up the mic. Take care. Love you. Bye. All righty. All over the page again for me, but it's all good. So I hope you got something out of that too. All right, see ya.